Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, The Automation Hub. So today we will talk about XPath Locator in Selenium, right? So we will discuss types of XPath in Selenium and how to create the XPath and what are the syntax for creating the XPath. So as you can see here in my screen, I already mentioned everything, like every related to the syntax how we are creating, right? So I will explain you everything one by one. So let's start for the types of XPath in Selenium. XPath is a locator we use to locate any element in our like in Selenium. If you're fetching any website, you are want to locate any element in the website, you will use XPath. If one condition is there, like we have predefined locator also, like name, class name, tag name, like this we have already mentioned, right? But if you want to fetch any element which is not like there is no name or there is no id is there or no text is there, so how you are going to fetch that element? So in that scenario, when the predefined locator was not there, so that scenario we will you create the XPath, so we will fetch using that XPath, right? So as you can see, relative XPath is what? It start from desired node or element, right? So if I want to fetch this element, like a self node, I want to fetch this one. So right. So if I want to fetch this element, so I will hit directly in this element, not that from start to end, right? But if you're using absolute, if you're writing the absolute XPath, so in that scenario, you need to start from the parent node to the child, right? I will start from first node, then the desired node will be the self node, right? So I will go to the first n, then n1, then self node. This way I will move to first to start to desired, right? But if I'm going to use relative XPath, so the relative XPath will hit directly in this desired node, right? So this is the difference. This is the main difference you can say. So as you can say, as per understanding, you can see here, if you are going from first node, then second node, then desired node, so this will take time, right? But if you are hitting the direct the first node, the you won't be like traversing from first to end, right? You're just hitting the desired one, right? So in that way you will take less time. So this is a difference. Absolute XPath, it take times x as compared to relative XPath, right? So this is the difference. You can say relative XPath is fastest as compared to absolute one, right? And second one is how we are going to create. For the relative XPath, we use double slash. As you can see here, the double slash, the double forward slash you can use for writing the relative XPath, right? But if you are going to create the absolute XPath, so you need to use single slash. As you can see in the orange syntax, I already mentioned here the single slash, then HTML node, then body, then this way you are going to traversing the element. But for relative, just double slash, then what is the tag name? Tag name is if I want to fetch this node, self node. So what is that? What is the XPath I'm going to create? The double slash, then tag name will be self node, then at the rate attribute I will mention what is the attribute. There will be attribute, then I will mention the value, and this way we write the create the relative XPath. So this is the difference main. So as you can see in interview question, you can see interviewer asks sometimes what is the difference between single slash and double slash. So you can see this question will come. So the difference will be what you are going to say. The double slash we use for writing the relative XPath. For single slash we use for creating the absolute XPath. So this is the difference you can say when someone asks you to what is the difference between single slash and double slash, right? So this thing you can cover. Okay, so I'm going to show you right now how we are going to create XPath, relative XPath, right? So I'm going to Okay, so if I'm going to inspect this element, company name, so you can see here ID already there, class is already there. These are the predefined locator. As I already mentioned in the previous tutorial, ID is one locator, and class is another locator, name is another locator. But if you want to create XPath using these locator, like using these attribute value, okay, so you can create also. Like I want to create using ID. I want to create the class X path using ID. So what is the tag name will be? Tag name will be input, right? The first element will be input and the attribute is ID, class, name. This way attribute is the this and the value will be this. So I'm going to use name attribute. So first of all, let's start inspect. Okay. So once I'm going to inspect this element, right? So first I want to inspect this element. So go to click on this element and you can see, as I already mentioned, you can see here the attribute will be type, class, ID. These are the attribute and the tag name is input. And I want to create the relative XPath, right? So I will use like name. I'm going to use name value, name attribute. So how we are going to create double slash, what is the syntax? Double slash, then tag name. So what is the tag name is input, right? And I'm going to copy the name value. I already copied name value and the tag name will be input. So double slash input, right? Then bracket, round bracket, and you can see the like we can say the bracket, rectangle bracket, you can call whatever you want to call. So this bracket we will use, then I'm using name. So at the rate, what is the syntax? Tag name, bracket, then at the rate attribute. I'm using attribute name. Name attribute I'm going to use, right? What is the name? Name attribute I'm going to use, right? For this. So at the rate attribute is name and equal to, in I will enter a single quote, then country, right? One second. Okay, this one is actually I use for select. So I will use select. This is for select, right? So select for use, you need to change the select. So in that way, you can see single node. If you are saying single node, one of one means this is the element we are, the exact element we are like fetching, like we are locating the exact element. But if you see, like if there is a two or three, so there is multiple element with the same attribute, you can see. But I already created this XPath, relative XPath, using attribute name is name and the tag name is select, and the you can see the individual value, right? So in this way, you can see we are creating the XPath, right? Relative XPath. As guys, this is the one scenario where the name is there, right? But if you see like in future, some of the element don't have any name or ID or anything, and how you are going to locate that element. So if I want to locate like something like this, I want to locate this paragraph. So how you are going to locate this paragraph? Because you can see there is no ID, no name, nothing is there, right? Only P is there. So how you are going to locate this element? For this, guys, there is another syntax. So I will go one by one. So first of all, I already explained the how we are going to create the relative XPath using, right, double slash. So double slash, then tag name, then attribute equal to country. So this is the first. I will note this. I will use notepad. So in that way you will write the XPath. So this one is First XPath, right? Using name attribute, right? Relative XPath, right? Relative XPath. I already created for this. Second one is, guys, second one I'm going to discuss about contains. How we are going to use contains while creating the XPath. So as you can see here, guys, when you are using contains, like if you are seeing there is no ID, no name, nothing is there, but there is some text is there. So you will see contain, you will use contain, right? So for contains, you can see the syntax will be double slash tag name bracket, then contains at the rate attribute ID or text or anything you can mention here, and then the value, right? So I will show you right now here. So if I want to like fetch any element using contains, I want to create XPath using contains, right? So how I am going to use this? Okay. So if you want to use contain keyword you want to use, so just use double slash. I'm going to fetch this element, right? So for this, right, I'm going to use contain keyword, and I will use ID for this locator. I will use ID for this locator, right? I'm going to fetch this element, first element, and I will use ID, right? And I'm going to use contain keyword. So how I'm going to write? Double slash, guys. Then what is the tag name? So tag name is input. You can see here, right? I'm going to fetch your full name, this element, and the tag name was input. Tag name is input, you can see here. So I will use tag name, then ID, I, but I am going to use contain. So how I am going to write this? Like tag name is input bracket contains, you need to write, then round bracket, then I will use at the rate ID, right, comma, the value. What is the value? The ID value I am entered here. So you can see here when I am hitting this, I am entering, you can see the first element is located, right? You can see the this one is highlighted. So this one is unique one because you can see one of one. If you are seeing one of two or one of three, that means we have multiple element with the same property, but you can see here only one of one, means this one is the unique one element with the unique property. ID is equal to this, but I'm using contain, right? And if I want to use like this one, I want to fetch this header, right? So how you are going to fetch this element, how you are going to write the XPath for this, and you want to fetch this value, the title, right, the text you want to fetch. When you are going to automate this website, you want to fetch this value, right? How you are going to fetch? So for this, guys, I will use contains, right? So I will copy this path, this text, right, copy this text, and double slash, what is the tag name? H1, right? Then bracket contains, you need to write, and round bracket, what is the value we have? Text. So I will enter text and round bracket, comma, double quote, and enter the value. The text I entered here, only text is mentioned here, right? So in this scenario, you can say contain is very useful because we don't have any ID, name, right? So in this scenario, you can say the contain is very helpful because using contain you can fetch this element, right? So I will copy this one separate in this contains keyword, where we can say using keyword for XPath. So this way we created this XPath, right? So let's start. Let's discuss another one. Okay, the third one is starts with. So guys, these are the customized XPath I am explaining you, like how we are going to create customized XPath. So let's start. So let's see, like for this I will explain you, like if you see, if you want to create any XPath which is starts with, like you are going to fetch one element. The element is dynamic. When you are, every time you are clicking, the every time the element ID is changing. Like the element ID is right now is, right, what is the element IDs? uh, you can say ABC underscore 123. First time if we are fetching one element, element A, right? So the ID is ABC. Again, you are trying to locate this element. So again, the ID is changed. ABC underscore 456, 467, 567, right? Then again, you are refreshing the page. Again, the ID is going to change underscore 098. This way, like you can see, the ID is changing. The ID is dynamic, right? And you want to fetch this element, you want to locate this element, right? So how you are going to locate this element? Because this element ID is changing every time, like the ID is not static, this one is dynamic. So how you are going to locate this element? For this, guys, we use starts with. There is one option, you can say, there is a one keyword we can say, the start with we use for creating, for writing the XPath. So you can see here the syntax will be, first of all you need to understand, you can see the every time ID is changing, like last digit is changing, but the starting point is same, right? The starting point is static, but the last digit is dynamic. So guys, you can see, if you give any interview, some of the interviewer ask this question. Like this one is also a one of the interview question, you can say. If someone asks you how to locate dynamic element, right? Because I'm going to locate one element which is dynamic, like every time the element ID is changing and there is no option, only ID is there, or there is no attribute, other attribute there, but only ID or the name. Like this way, the element attribute is there, but every time it's changing. So how you are going to locate dynamic element? So for this question, guys, the answer will be this. We use, if you can, if you ask that person, like if the ID is changing from the last end or the beginning, like something will be static, right? Something will be static and something will be dynamic. In that scenario, you will say, like I will use this, I will create XPath using start with keyword, right? So I will write the, like syntax will be tag name, right? The tag name, and you can say starts with, right? Starts with, and the round bracket and the ID at the rate ID, comma, in single quote. You need to mention the static part, not the dynamic part. If I am going to enter this one, the static part is what? Static part will be ABC, and the dynamic part will be this one. So I will enter only static part. So how we are going to write this? So the syntax will be like the element tag name is input, right? So I will use input, right? Or tag name, you can say anything, you can say div, right? Tag name is div, or right, and you want to use the dynamic ID, right? So let's start. So write with starts dash with round bracket, and you need to mention ID, because there is ID mentioned, but the ID is partial, like some is static, some is dynamic. So in that scenario, you need to enter this way and enter the ID, the static ID. So static part will be A, B, C underscore only, not the numbers, because numbers are changing every time. So in this scenario, guys, you can understand like the static part is ABC underscore and the dynamic part is the numbers, which is changing every time when I am selecting the element, every when I am refreshing, or every time it's changing. So this is the dynamic element, and I want to locate this element. So I will use the static part only here, guys. So once I will use this way, so that way you can locate this element because the static portion is there, but the dynamics changing doesn't matter. I'm using static part. I'm hitting the static thing. So static will be this one. So this part will hit. So this is the syntax for, right, for this way. So I will show you right now. Like we can say, okay. So I want to create XPath, right, using this one. So let's see. Okay, as you can see, I don't have dynamic element here right now, but I want to show you. So okay, so I will use this one, form, or okay, wait, I will show you one of the scenario. Okay, maybe there is multiple classes there. Okay, let's start. I will show you in this way. I will use pick one of the this one. Okay, and okay, I'm using this one. So as you can see ID here, right? I want to use start with. As you can see, this one is not dynamic because this one is static. You can see static ID. But for example purpose, I just want to show you like how we are going to create. But in future, if you face the same way like the dynamic ID, you can use the same way. So you can see ID is here, but I will use the partial one. Till here, I am going to use. Right? I'm not going to use complete one. I just added half ID. Let's see, this one is the static one, for example, not the static one, but I am assuming this is the static part and this one is the dynamic part. I am assuming, and let's create this one. So for input, right, and bracket, then start starts dot with, okay, and at the rate ID, comma, single quote. I will enter the partial ID. You can see, right? The partial ID is what? You can see here the partial ID when I entered there is a multiple IDs 2 of 3, 13. The same ID we have multiple element. That's why you can see 13 element you can see, right? So I think this one is not good part. I don't see any like I will use this. Okay. Till here I'm going to use ID, right? So okay, div div bracket start starts with, right, at the rate ID, comma, I'm going to use this. So you can see guys there is a multiple class ID is there with the same title, same the volume. That's why, but you can create in that way like unique ID like this one and that one. That way we can create the XPath, right? So this way. Okay guys, so this one is for start with. When the element is dynamic and the ID is changing from starting, from the ending. point, right? So that time we can say you can use starts with. As also you can see the four number ends with. What is the ends with? The same way we can say if ID is there, like the fourth one ends with, right? Fourth one will be ends with. If the you can say ID is one of the element ID is A123 text, right? ID equal to 4345 text. This way one of the ID mentioned, right? Element ID is changing in this way, like the beginning part is changing but the ending part is constant. So in this way we will use ends with. So I will create the XPath using ends with, right? So input tag name, you will use tag name, then bracket, then ends with, then round bracket, right? Then at the rate ID, comma, single quote. I will use the static part only, not the dynamic, as we used before. For the start with we use static, right? So in the same way I will use the static part, like the underscore text. This is a static part, you can say, and the dynamic part is this one, the changing value. So this way you can say that this is the dynamic and this one is the static, because this is the constant and this one is changing, right? So guys, this way we used ends with to create the XPath. So this is also useful for the dynamic element, right? So guys, this is the way to create XPath. Let's discuss about link. So when you are fetching any link, so you mostly we will use contains keyword for fetching any link, right? If I want to fetch any link, I will use contains, because there is nothing here, right? No attribute mentioned here, only href or nothing is there. And you want to create the XPath for this. And also you want to know like how many types of, like how many links present in this page. So this way you can create the XPath, right? So you will use contains keyword. So for contains, just the same way we used before, right guys? So same way I will create, sorry, I opened the wrong window. So for this I will, if I want to create the XPath for this, I will just copy the text and use the contains keyword. Double slash, the A tag name was A, and the contains, round bracket, need to mention text because we copy text value. I just enter text. So you need to remove the blank space. Once you will remove, you will see this one. So you can see guys, when I am using this text new articles, you can see three elements showing. Means three element is there which is same value, like that the property, same property we in these three different element, you can say we have this one. You can see for this link, for this link, you can see three different element with the same property already present. So I'm not going to use this value, so I will pick something else. Okay, so I'm going to pick this link. So once I will go to, so I'm going to enter this, the text value will be right. So as you can see, there is a two element. So this way you can see, like we need to pick the unique one, right? Okay, let's see. I'm going to use this button. So for using this button, create using contains button bracket contains round bracket text comma enter the text here. The same way you can see there is a multiple, so you can see there is a two element, but the syntax is same, right? I'm You can see there is a two button is there with the same property contact sales. That's why it's showing like this, right? So you can say guys, but the syntax will be same. Thanks. Sorry. So for this, so the contains keyword we use. So okay. So guys, the main part is I already mentioned the types. The types, like what are the types? So expert types we have relative and absolute. Then the syntax, how we are going to write the relative XPath. So this is the syntax like double slash tag name attribute equal to value. This way we are writing how we are going to use contains. So the contains, for contains you can see if there is no ID name or class name, so you will use contains keyword. Okay, so using contains you can create the XPath, or you can, if you are fetching the dynamic element, so you will use starts with or ends with. There is a two keyword is there, so you can use any one which is suitable as per your condition. So you can use this one for the dynamic locator, dynamic elements, right? So for the link you can use contains because the text is present, so you can, in that way you can use. So guys, this is the part I already explained, and let's discuss about XPath access. So I will discuss you in the like I will explain you in brief. Like you can say XPath access. So guys, you will face this question like what is the XPath access? Whenever you face any interview, someone will ask you, do you know about XPath access? How many types of XPath access we have and why we are using XPath access? So this type of question you can face in future. So for this, I just mentioned these points. So just learn these, remember this, and do practice because practice is very important for these, right? When we are creating the XPath using XPath access, so we need to practice this for for regular basis. So in that way you can understand like, yeah, I will write this because this is the reason and this is the way we are writing this, right? So I will discuss one by one. Okay, so let's start. So XPath access, guys, so I will show you. Okay, so let's discuss this. Hmm. So first of all, we have nine types of XPath access. Nine types we have. One is self, second is parent, third is child, fourth is ancestor, fifth is descendant, sixth is following, seven is following sibling, 8 is preceding, and 9 is preceding sibling. So these are the type of XPath access. And what is the meaning of these? So I will explain you. Okay. So as you can see here in the right side, I already mentioned the syntax and I will tell you what is the reason why we are using. So self is what? If you want to locate one element, you want to mention this one is self element, like I am going to locate this one and I want to locate as a self myself, this one I am locating. So in that this syntax I will say, I can say just use self access, right? So self will be the tag name, the expert you need to create like the way you are creating. After that just use single slash, then mention self and double colon, then tag name. So I will show you here the sex path already I mentioned here, right? So after that just mention slash and self, right? Just write type self and double colon, and then I will use the same because I am pointing to myself, right? The same button I am going to point, so I will use button. So this way I am pointing to the self, myself. But this one is not unique, so I will show you with the unique one. Let's use this one. Okay. Okay. So like I'm going to first create the XPath input, right? Then at the rate name equal, right, email. So this one you can say unique one, right? Unique element you already find it, right? And I want to locate self. I want to use XPath self. So single slash just need to use, just type self, right? And use double colon. Then same element I want to point. So I will use input, right? So when I will type input, self will be called. So you can see multiple input highlighted because there is a multiple input tag name is there. That's why. But you can mention like this. This way is unique one, right? You can see already element ID is there, so that one is unique one. One of one. So this one is the self for self. I will mention in this notepad, right? For self, right? For self. Let's discuss second one, the parent. What is the parent? So guys, as you can see, I added one drawing here on the structure for explaining you guys. So you can see, I already mentioned the first node is in red one, you can see the grandparent. We can say the orange one is N1 is parent, then self node, then child. These are the child. This one is a grandchild. This one is child. Like this, I mentioned this. So if you want to fetch the parent one, so how you're going to? So this is a self node. So this one is self. So who is the parent of this node? So the parent will be N1 because this is the sibling of this. The parent, like this is pointing to this self node. The parent will be N1, right? So for this you can understand the self node parent is N1 and the ancestor. What is the meaning of ancestor? Ancestor means grandparent. Big, like the parent node, you can say the first one, the grandparent, you can say. So ancestor will be N, but the parent will be N1 and the self node will be self node. So I want to fetch the parent, right? So let's check here. So I'm going to remove this one. Okay. So I already pointed this element, right? One. So I right now I'm pointing contact this element, right? I'm pointing this element and I want to check the parent of this element. So who is the parent of this element? You can see div is the parent of this element, right? Because inside div you can see input tag is there. So I will call this as a parent. So let's use parent access, then double colon, then I will use div, right? So you can see here one node is selected, right? And I want to, and if you want to specify the parent, you can use this way at the rate class equal this. So in this way you can fetch that element using parent. So parent is div, right? So this way we can say, but you can say there is a multiple div middle column. So this one is the not the correct one, I can say. If I want to mention something else, let's discuss. I want to show you something different, right? Okay, so let's inspect this site. So, okay, so this is the element and this is the parent. TD is parent, this is the element, right? So we can say control F, I want to say this. So just first of all, I'm going to create the XPath for this. So double slash div, then at the rate ID equal single quote value, right? So I mentioned this. So you can see one of one, this element is unique one, right? Then I'm going to check parent. Parent. I want to access parent. What is the, who is the parent of this element? So single slash parent double colon and TD. So you can see TD is highlighted. So you can see this one is the parent one, right? Right? So as this is the unique one, one of one, so this one is the correct one. So this way we use parent access, XPath access, parent one, right? So this way we create for parent. Let's discuss another one. So what is child? So the child is like the self node is this, and the who is the child of this self node? A3 is the child of this self node, we can say, right? Because this is pointing to this. Or you can say N1 is the child of self node, we can say, right? So the syntax will be tag name ID, then just create the XPath, after that just single slash and child, then double colon, then tag name. So I'm going to show you here, like who is the child of this. So see, I am going to remove this. I located this element, right? But you can see here, under this element, you can see one of the tag name is table. So this is the child of this element, right? Because this one is pointing to this one. So we can say this is a child. So I'm going to use child. So slash child double colon. I'm going to use table. So once I will mention this, so you can see child is highlighted one of one. So this one is the unique one. So guys, this way we can identify. I was there in this element. I was there before, but when I use child access, so child will be this one. So you can access the second element following the existing one. So this is the use of child. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. So guys, this way we can say child XPath access we used. We create, right? So, okay, let's discuss another ancestor. So who is the ancestor? So guys, ancestor is means grandparent. If one parent is there, so the parent of parent, like the grandparent will be this one. The self node is this, the current node is this, and I want to check, I want to locate the ancestor of this node. I want to locate the grandparent of this node. So I will use ancestor, right? So for ancestor, guys, so see, this one is the child, or we can say this one is the current node, right? Current element is this one. I'm going to remove the child one, right? This is the current one, right? And if you see, this one is the parent and this one is the ancestor. The grandparent will be TR, right? And the parent will be TD. After that, the self node will be div, right? So right now I'm in div. Right now I'm in div, locating this one. But I want to fetch ancestor. I want to fetch the grandparent element, right? So how we are going to? So just slash ancestor, ancestor, double colon, and just mention tag name will be tr. So you can see guys, the child was this one, the self node is this, but I'm pointing to the ancestor, the grandparent. Grandparent is this one. So in that way you can you can fetch the element. If you see like one of the element is able to locate, but the other one is not able to, you can locate. So in that way you can use like the ancestor or the child or the parent. In that way you can create the XPath. So I'm going to save this ancestor. Okay, for this, right? I am going to write this way. Let's discuss another one. The descendant. Who is the descendant? What is the descendant meaning? So descendant meaning the grandchild. Like we discussed the grandparent, parent of parent, right? The child of child. Like my child is like this, so child of child, like you can say. So this is the grandchild. So descendant when we use if you want to locate your grandchild, like this is the self node, right? And if you see this one is B1 is the child, but B1 is also pointing to B2. So B2 is the grandchild. The B1 child is B2 and the self node child is B1. So self node child will be grandchild will be B2. So this one is the descendant. The descendant will be B2, right? So I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to use this one for example, the same one. So right now this is the self node. You can say this one is the self node, and I want to fetch the descendant one, right? I want to see the who is the descendant. So descendant. I think spelling will be miss. Okay, okay, right. So spelling d descendant, right? This way we I want to like my the current node is this, like the self self element is this one, the self node, the current one is this one, and I want to check who is the descendant of this one, this element, right? Who is the descendant? So descendant will be, right? So who is the descendant? This is the child. After that, who is the child, right? So the child will be TD, I think. TD? No, this one is not one. I think this one is not the correct one. So we need to pick another. Okay, this one is the correct example, perfect example, I can say. Okay, I'm going to first create the XPath for this. Just use form. Okay, at the rate name equal. I'm going to. Okay, so this is the unique one. This form I'm locating this element. This is the complete form, I think. That's why it's showing. But I want to show the descendant, so that's why I used pick one. I picked this one. So the child is this and the grandchild is this. Thus descendant one is this. So you want to see, just click D, okay, descendant, right? Double colon. Who is the descendant of this current node? The table. So I will mention table. So you can see here multiple descendant, like multiple in the form itself have multiple child, grandchild. That's why it's showing this way, right? Table, then T body, then this way. So this is the grandchild you can see, right? And if I can see here, This is the parent, this is child. So this way, guys, we need to check like the who is the grandchild of the current node. So that way we use descendant. Okay. So guys, this is the main, we can say this is a syntax for descendant. Descendant means grandchild. If there is a one specific node and you want to check the grandchild you want to locate, so that way you will use descendant, right? So this way we can say, okay, let's discuss the following. So guys, following we mostly use while creating the XPath because this is very handy one, we can say, if you are writing any XPath, right? So you will use the following. Okay, so let's okay. So I'm going to show you one example here. Easiest one I will show you right now. Okay, so let's create use the following keyword. So I'm going to first use this one, create the XPath for this input, right? And at the rate, which one I'm locating? Sorry, name, right? So I will show you name equal. First I enter, so I'm locating this, right? So I want to follow the next element. Who is the next element for the current element, right? So single slash following, right? Double colon, which tag I'm following? Div, right? So you can see there are 120 185 element with the same property, so you need to mention the specific property if you are going to following this. So div id equal to, I'm going to use this at the rate id equals to, we can say this. So guys, see, if you are locating any element and if I want to locate this element but there is no option to write XPath, like we have no option for writing the XPath for this, but I have XPath for this one, current one. So I can use this one and I will use following, then I will follow this one. So in this way we can write the XPath, or we can say we can locate the element, following element. So this is the unique one, you can say. I mentioned the div, then I did enter the property because div, there are multiple div for using the same property, so that's why I mentioned this one. So this is the syntax, we can say, the following we will use for writing the XPath, right? This is the syntax. So this is the main use following, because if you want to fetch this element, if you currently you are in this element or you want to fetch this one, so just use following and mention the tag name. And again, still you are seeing like multiple element with the same property, just mention again the little bit detail, just add like the way I added like ID. So in that way you can say this one is the specific one, right? So in that way we write the XPath. Okay. Okay. Then the following sibling. So following sibling is the same way. Like guys, if this is the sibling, I'm following this one. So the following will be this one. So when you will write the following sibling, then after that just mention the B2. So in that way you can use the following sibling. What is the meaning of preceding? Preceding means previous one. Like if you want to fetch this one, what is the previous element of the current node? The self node is this one. The who is the previous one? The previous one is this one. And you want to look at this one using preceding, so you can use the preceding. And the syntax will be the same. The tag name, mention the XPath, then slash, then preceding, double colon, and mention the tag name. So in that way, you will locate the previous element, like the N1. Okay, so like this, we create the XPath using these axes, XPath axes. These are very helpful while you are working in a project and you are creating, you are locating element which is difficult to locate, like there is no predefined locator. So in that way, that scenario, you can use one of these and you can create the XPath using these, right? So guys, this is all about XPath, right? Today I discuss all about XPath, the types of XPath, XPath access, how we are going to create XPath, relative XPath, how we are going to use contains, how we are going to use starts with, ends with, right? And how we are going to create the XPath using XPath access, how we are going to create the XPath. So guys, these are the points I already discussed, and please try and do practice while working on this. I want to explain you live in my project, but this will take time, so I will make another video for explaining all of these, like the in the live project. Right now, I just mentioned like how we are going to create, but these are the specific and the unique ones, so you need to just practice and understand the scenarios. So in that way, you can be expert in XPath access or XPath, how we are going to create. So thank you so much guys for watching this tutorial, and please subscribe my channel